you've got some information on that, right?
Look, we're all watching to see, is Ben going to show, okay? This is the first game that the Sixers are playing without him. It's a preseason game, but you still get doc money if he doesn't show up. He's being fined for not showing up. Brian reported over the weekend that his first check didn't go through. But from what I understand, this was never about the money. He's still status quo right now. Now, we're going to have to keep checking in on this. We'll check in next week and every game that he misses, because each game is going to be money that comes out of the check. But when and if Ben gets traded and he eventually returns to Philadelphia, I do not expect that to be kind. And I think that speaks to the larger point of, from Ben's side, if he doesn't show up in Philly, or if he ended up, at some point showing up and making things uncomfortable there, what kind of Ben Simmons would even show up? At that point, things are so toxic there.
Wait, but do you think that's a possibility that he could still show up?
It depends on how long this goes, right, Brian? We've seen standoffs before.
Yeah, I think we actually have to look at the NFL, because this is a situation that is not really we see in the NBA very often. When guys haven't shown, it's because they haven't signed. We don't see guys under contract not show up. So in the NFL, what they have been doing recently is holding in, where they show up and basically don't play. And I think if hindsight is 20/20 here, that's what Ben Simmons should have done. He should have arrived in Philadelphia, sat on the bench and said, I am just not going to play. I've got a sore back, or going to do what John Wall is doing, which even though it's an agreement with the team, he's essentially sidelined until they can trade him. By holding out, it creates this whole series of unanticipated and unprecedented moments, like this money that was due him. And the Sixers took a NFL-like approach to it, which is they put the money that they owed him, $8 million, they put it in escrow instead of giving it to him, so they could chip the fines off as they go along. Had they waited until he got the actual fine money to be a high number, he would have had IOUs due to the Sixers. This way, they can actually take the actual money away from him with the intent of never giving it back. That is what they do in the NFL. So this is turning into an NFL-style holdout. And by the way, that is not a direction the NBA wants to go in, because it obviously creates a lot of problems and renegotiations in the NFL they don't have in the NBA.
Ramona, obviously this will put a lot on Joel Embiid's shoulders, which pretty big shoulders, right? Pretty broad shoulders.
Yep.
But is there another gear, I guess, for Joel in this particular situation?
He thinks so. I mean, he's going into this season thinking he's added moves to his game. There's going to be no doubt of where the offense is running through. He's going to take more shots per game than he probably ever has. That's his goal, at least. And I think that he sets up, and we had those MVP odds. If Ben Simmons does not play for the Sixers this year, I think you really have to look at Joel Embiid. He was the runner-up last year, and if he can play enough games, he should be in there, and especially if they play well. They're really high on Tyrese Maxey. They really like him in that spot, and they're very high on this. And in a lot of ways, that lineup right there is geared more towards Embiid's skill set than when they have to do the making room for each other with Ben Simmons.
And, Brian, with Tobias Harris, I mean, he's another max player. We don't even talk about him, but he's certainly someone that can elevate his game at this point, right?
Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity for Tobias. He thought he should have been an all-star last year. He wasn't really that close to making it, but that door is open. But here's the thing. They're taking away one of the top 3 or 4 defensive players in the league off of their roster. They are not going to just not feel that. They're going to feel it. They were the #1 seed in the East last year, bona fide championship contender. You don't lose a guy like Ben Simmons and all of a sudden are still in the same spot. I do agree with Ramona. I mean, I was somebody who was beating the drum for Embiid to be MVP last year, but he missed so many games that it became very hard to vote for him. But that's the thing with Embiid. He misses games. He got hurt then in the playoffs. If he's not missing games, he's playing through injuries. So, it's one thing to have a team like they had last year. It's another thing to not have Ben Simmons and then knowing that Embiid's going to miss a significant percentage of games. I just don't think they're the same team without him. And that's why it's a conundrum for Philly, because they can't just trade him for nothing. They've got to trade him for players or player that can keep that same level. And it is not an easy level to maintain because, Ben Simmons is a very good player.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.